Cool. I think it's slowed down a bit, and Kyle will keep monitoring the waiting room and admit everybody. Um, cool. So everybody, welcome to the October webinar, TVDM webinar. And this month it's all about annual general meetings because, of course, I don't know about everyone else, but for us, it really does seem like it is AGM annual general meeting season. I know Poena at MeetingPal, I think that they probably running about several meetings a day at the moment, AGMs. So very busy time of year for everyone. And it is a very, very hot topic. Obviously, I think there are a lot of things that we can discuss. Poena and myself, we have selected a few topics to discuss today. But of course, if anyone else would like to ask any questions or you have any opinions or comments or anything like that, please feel free to use the chat. And just a reminder to everybody that if you do have some background noise or an echo or anything like that, please mute yourself. And I'm going to just hand over to Kyle for some housekeeping things. And then I will do a quick introduction of Poena Le Roux, our guest today. And then we will get started. Over to you, Kyle.
Cool. Sorry, Carl, I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. If you don't mind just muting everybody that is not speaking, there is still some background noise and there's quite a few people that are unmuted. If you can just do that first. Okay. Awesome stuff. Thanks so much, Carl.
No problem. Thanks, Nicole. Good morning, everyone. I hope that you're all doing well, and thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Just a couple of marketing announcements. As this webinar is being recorded, it will be published on our YouTube channel and website, as well as a copy of the recording will be sent to you. Then, if you haven't already, please do sign up to our newsletter. This way you can keep in touch with the TVDM consultants team. And then some upcoming events. Make sure to join Nicole on Thursday, the 23rd of October at 5 p.m. for an insightful webinar hosted by Trafalgar Property Management on navigating conflict and challenging personalities in community schemes. Then Nicole and Zelinda will also be part of Sastra's first episode of season 1 on short-term rental insights. It's a series, and this will be happening on Tuesday, the 4th of November at 3 p.m. The TVDM consultant team will also be exhibiting at the upcoming Bellville Business Expo, happening the 28th and 29th of October at the Tiger Valley Shopping Centre. We're also very excited to be attending the CSOS in Durban, where Zelinda will be one of the panelists, and that will also be exhibiting. So make sure to come and say hi. And this will be taking place on the 23rd and 24th of October. Then lastly, our neighborhood live discussion will happen Friday, the 31st of October at 9 a.m. But this month, we are opening the gates of our neighborhood up to everyone. All you'll need to join is any valid Our Neighborhood membership. So I'll add all the relevant links to register and for more information in the chat. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Wow. So as you can see, the TVDM team is booked and busy out and about. So we'd love to see you at some of those events all around the country. I know the CSOS in Durban, I think, is in Joburg or Pretoria, somewhere in GP. And the Bellville Business Expo obviously happening here in Cape Town. And obviously the webinars and all of those things are in line, so everyone can join. All right, without further ado, I'm going to do a quick introduction of Poena Le Roux from MeetingPal. He is one of our dearest colleagues, and he is a seasoned IT professional with over 35 years of experience. He has founded a management consulting company and software development house back in 1992, which combined his expertise in technology as well as business strategy. He also holds an MBA from the Bond University in Australia and also has completed various Paddocks courses. He's been deeply involved in sectional title management for more than 2 decades as an owner, a trustee, and even a chairperson of a 50-unit self-managed complex. And it was here where he had the first-hand challenges of doing things like running a meeting, doing budgets, getting insurance, all of those things. But then in 2017, he designed MeetingPal. an innovative platform integrating number and value, as we all hear all the time with voting, proxy management, immediate calculations of voting results, as well as e-voting, all within one seamless video call environment. Since the launch in 2020 August, MeetingPal has been widely adopted by thousands of bodies corporate, homeowners associations, pension fund administrators, and companies, enabling efficient governance across thousands of meetings. The platform is now steadily expanding into international markets as well. Thanks so much for joining us today, Poena. I hope that you are as excited as me.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I always feel very embarrassed when all the credentials are read. I'm just a normal person like all of you, suffering through AGMs and dealing with owners every day.
Awesome. Cool. So I think I thought a good one just to kick us off, which is a very popular question I get asked very often, is, the prescribed management rules clearly provide that an annual general meeting needs to be held within 4 months of a financial year end. And of course, a question I get asked all the time, or people come to me all the time and they say, oh no, it's been 6 months or it's been a year since our last AGM or something like those things. What are the consequences or what do we do? And I always, unfortunately, have to tell them that there aren't really any legal consequences for not holding your meeting. You need to have it as soon as you can. But from a body corporate point of view, not holding your AGM within the required time period has massive implications. Like, you need to approve the budget, you need to approve insurance, you need to improve contributions to the reserve fund, all of those. Oh, and of course, everyone's favorite, electing trustees. So there are very important things that need to be done. But I think what people don't understand is that from a legality point of view, there's very little consequence to not holding the meeting within that time frame. And if you are in a scheme that has not held its AGM within the 4-month period, or perhaps even longer, then there is, of course, a mechanism in terms of PMR 17(4)(b), or I believe it's A or B, where it says that 25% of members, so 25% out of the entire PQ within the scheme, can collectively band together and submit a written request to the trustees to hold a general meeting. And of course, if the trustees refuse or it doesn't go ahead, the members can take the power in their own hands and hold the annual general meeting themselves. So I don't know if you have any comments on that, Poena. What is your experience with schemes that hold meetings a bit later than they should? Yeah.
Yes, you are correct. I mean, one of the problems that we do face is that there's no legal consequence or penalties for failing to do that. And a good excuse always is used is the auditors have not completed the AFSs, and hence everybody is at the mercy of the auditors. So that is one excuse that we do find quite often. But to your point, in terms of calling it yourself, there is also what we do find is that when owners do get together and call for a meeting on the 25% rule, we do find very interesting petitions, if I can put it that way, that was signed, where co-owners will have a 50-50 or a 33% or a 25%, and all 4 of them sign, which is rather interesting, which I've seen in the past. But effectively, what we do find is that in a lot of cases, again, owners don't appreciate the value rule around that. So we do get requests for running AGM or a SGM based on the 25% rule. But again, when we do then plug it into MeetingPal to see, is this actually a valid request, we do find in a lot of cases we need to return to the owners and say, listen here, unfortunately, you either need more signatures or you need to persuade your trustees to hold it. But you're right. The timeliness calling and or execution of the AGMs are very critical, especially on and owners do blame trustees quite often for running budgets and increasing the levies. without proper authorization at the beginning of the year and whatever. So that all adds to the confusion related to when to hold an AGM and what is to be discussed in there. Even though we approve the budget, is more of a retrospective approval, because in some cases the budget's already been enacted for 4 months or 6 months or 8 months, depending on when they call that. And there's this notion that we're not approving it. Okay, so what do you do then? How do we then deal on budgets not being approved? Effectively, the incoming trustees will have no power to execute, but because they've got to run against the line items in the budget. If your budget's not approved, so all of these considerations are always there. And I'm not an expert in this. I've only been in the industry for 20 years, as you said. We learn every night. Every meeting we run, we learn something new. Different interpretations. We always have very, very clever owners that also would come to the party and their understanding. And lately, ChatGPT is also adding a lot of extra noise to the system, if I can put it that way. We can see where owners are calling the SG or an AGM, and then the resolutions are all drafted typically with a ChatGPT slant and no real context and or no resolution, no a point of making a decision is specified anywhere.
100%. I've seen a lot of that as well. I mean, I think myself and Sarah were reviewing something a week or so ago, and it was for a proposed special resolution. But when we looked at it, we thought there's no decision that's being made here. It was like a special resolution for a discussion about something. We both looked at each other and we were like, what is going on here? If this is just a special general meeting to have a discussion, then it's not a special general meeting. It's just an informal meeting for discussion purposes. So yeah, I mean, we've also seen some interesting things. And I think then that brings us to an interesting topic of, if you are submitting a resolution for an AGM or for any general meeting, but let's specifically focus on an AGM here, any special business or something like that, it's not only the wording of the resolution that needs to be as descriptive as possible, in the sense that you say, for example, if it was to a special resolution to enter into a lease agreement, let's use it as an example, you would say it's a special resolution in terms of section 4H of the SDSMA to enter into a lease agreement between the body ABC body corporate and XYZ owner. This is the area that's being leased. This is the rental. And then obviously with that, you should always attach the relevant supporting documents or any additional information that needs to accompany that resolution, because members need to be fully informed about the decision that they're going to make. And unfortunately, something that I see very often is, bodies corporate will send out the correct notice period if they are to table and consider a unanimous or a special resolution, which of course would be 30 days. But then they might not include the unanimous or the special resolution, all the documents to be considered. And then that often comes a week or two later, or it says additional documents to follow. I mean, in our opinion, and in terms of the SDSMA, that's not correct. All of the documents and all of the resolutions pertaining to the annual general meeting need to go out once the notice is sent, with the required notice period, whether that is 14 days or 30 days. And I mean, it could even be 7 days on an urgent basis.
Yeah, I hear you, and it's always interesting to your point that where people don't understand how to draft a proper resolution, first of all, and then what supporting documents needs to go out with the notice. Again, just on the 25% owners calling for a meeting, what we do find quite often is that they will set up the agenda, and then on the day of the meeting, they will instruct us to add more resolutions to the meeting without proper notice, and or so all of those things are things to be taken into consideration. And I always say to people that if you are calling for a meeting and you're spending the amount of money to run a general meeting, whether it's special or annual, you need to ensure that you get bang for your buck in terms of process, that you are not challenged in terms of process or people taking you on because you have not provided the supporting documents. But you would also know that there are so many opinions as to what is a proper notice. A lot of people says if I give you the agenda and give you notice of a special resolution with documents to follow, that is good enough. And as long as within 14 days, there's also that argument, then you're good. So we never, from our side, we can't call on that. Where I'm the chairman, I have my rules and I can enforce my rules. But on that, there is definitely some considerations to be taken. And then what we do find is that a lot of people don't draft the wording to actually get a resolution, or especially special unanimous resolutions. What they will, and I'm just going to use a different scenario where they would say, we are going to install solar. We want to approve the installation of the solar. And then they give you in the same resolution, they give you option A to approve vendor A, vendor B, vendor C. Now, every time you provide a different option, you dilute the opportunity of getting 75% in any vote. So in that case, you got to think as to the outcome that you want to achieve. So the first outcome and what the actual resolution should be is what is required for the special resolution. Yes, we are going to approve the installation of solar. That is the special resolution. The wording in terms or the vendor that needs to go for that or that they want to appoint, that's an ordinary resolution that you don't need to have a 75% vote on. So if you structure it correctly in saying that, if we then put it up and saying that the resolution of a special resolution is this, your probability of having a 75% approval on that single resolution is far higher than having three options, because if any one of them takes on a different voting, you're already at 66% of your voting. So you're not going to get to that value, and that's why we say that in terms of drafting resolutions, I always say, and I'm going back to being a management consultant, I knew the answer that I wanted, and I would always keep on asking questions until I get to the answer that I needed or expected. So it's the same when you draft resolutions. We need to understand what are the outcome and what is required. And as I say, whether it's an ordinary or special, we need to define what is that. And then from there, we can then say, okay, follow on resolutions to support that, but we then have an opportunity to at least pass the special resolution. All resolutions, as I say, it's a normal 50%, but it's especially when you for special unanimous resolutions, think carefully and draft it very specifically to the outcome that you expect, and then from there you can have follow-on resolutions to support once the decision has been made.
I'm so happy that you brought that up, because I must tell you, it pains me to see that, when bodies corporate say, and I'm sure that you are going to back me up with what I say now, but we definitely see it the most with rule amendments. And then a body corporate will come to you and they'll say, oh, we're going to vote on every rule instead of the document as a whole. And then we try and explain to them, listen, it's not practically possible. You're going to need 75% then for every rule to be amended, to be approved. And then what happens if one rule passes and another rule doesn't? Does the old rule replace it? It doesn't make sense. But I definitely have experienced all of those things that you've discussed. For sure.
What people also sorry, just to interrupt you, but people don't think is the amount of time. So if we say to approve the rules as a whole, then it might be half an hour discussion around that. But if you do that for 70 or odd changes, it's a half an hour per change that you want to drive. You just killed yourself in terms of the duration of the meeting.
Exactly. Yeah. But let's not get into the rules because I can speak forever on those. So let's keep it to the AGM. So I think maybe a good thing to also discuss, with obviously with MeetingPal and post-COVID and COVID and all of those things. Of course, there's always I think a lot of bodies corporate think to themselves now, do we have a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams or like an online meeting only? Do we have a hybrid? So some people online and we get a slightly smaller venue, maybe in someone's flat, which happens more often than people think, or perhaps a larger venue like, a hall, a scouts hall, or like a church or something like that. What is your obviously experience as MeetingPal? What are people generally going for nowadays? And I mean, just like the cost comparison between the three of them. Because I know, for example, for an adjourned meeting, if you're doing all physical, you essentially have to book a venue for 2 consecutive weeks in case you don't have quorum the first time. Whereas online, it's a bit of a lower risk, I'd like to think. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Pina?
Yes, I think there are certainly pros and cons to each one of them, different cost elements, and the whole logistical exercise that we always forget. If we just take a normal physical meeting, to your point, you need to book the venue in advance, uh, and it's interesting. I've had many complaints where we did hybrid meetings where the people could not find the physical venue. Uh, So that is the contrary to the other side. This I've been
It's
driving around
almost
for half
like
an hour.
it's almost like the problem is the people.
But I'm
Yeah.
not saying that. I'm just saying that there were owners that could get there, but I mean that's always the story.
Ah,
So
yeah.
in that regard, we need to consider that, and if it's irrespective of the whether it's only physical or only online. Let me just use the two as an example. I'll deal with hybrids because that's a special kind of animal that you need to work with. But in terms of the physical meetings, I mean, venue costs and then depending again on the body corporate, the size of the body corporate, the smallish, if I can put it that way, below 30, owners attending. That is fairly manageable in a smaller venue. You don't need the PA system and microphones and whatever. So that can work, but people forget that they need to print voting cards and then they've got to have voting cards, irrespective of whether they are going to, it's not a show of hands anymore. They need to print voting cards. And then during the meeting, some trustees that nominated themselves or were nominated withdraw because they read the room and say, no, I'm not longer going to be a trustee. Then you've got to change all your voting cards or, approval of minutes and things like that. So there are always this, if you have now printed the voting cards, how do you deal with changes that comes up in the meeting? And then the costs associated to that in terms of I know that, and we're now only speaking about bodies corporate, but HRAs are totally a different animal because they go for the party, pizzas, and everything is there. So
Yeah. Cheese
it's a
and
whole
wine afterwards. They have a great time.
and it's budgeted for. Remember that is part of the whole process, so it's budgeted for. But again, even that is a whole cost that you need to take into consideration. The overall cost of running a meeting on the physical side, and how do you run it logistically? If it's more than 30 people, you need staff to support you in bringing people in, getting to sign the attendance register, issuing the voting cards, and sorting out proxies. Because proxies, this is where people then pitch with the proxy, and then the pressure is on to actually capture the proxies and to see whether they may vote or can't vote and things like that. So I'm not going to go into that now. But that is definitely on the physical side. You need to look at a lot of logistical side, and what we do forget, and it's coming back to the online side as well. People forget that we now gone out of load shedding for a bit, but people do forget you book a venue and then you got to have a backup plan should the venue fail on electricity. So you got to then have that in place as well, generators, or you adjourn and come back in any case next week. So those are the things that, and hope that you don't have a load shedding schedule again next week. So those are the things that one needs to consider in a physical venue. As I say, it is if it's a bit bigger crowd that you need to entertain, then you need to work on that. Hendrik had an interesting question yesterday on whether you can ask for IDs. I'm not going to say yay or nay. That's for the legal staff or your legal teams to address that. But what we do see is that on HOAs, you can, in terms of the HOA, MOI, or constitution, only registered owners can uh, participate. So we have control on that side where we then can control them in terms of participation. But that's normally also where the fight starts. You may come in, but your wife can't come in. So I'm not, again, physical meetings do have their own challenges. Cost-wise, controlling the crowd, and people influencing, and people, what we always see is that when Jan with his big stick in the front there, walking around and influencing the meeting. So that's part of the physical meeting that you need to consider in terms of cost, logistics, and support personnel that we need to provide on that side. On the other side of the coin is the online meetings. They tend to work fairly well. When I say fairly well, not everybody is equally IT savvy, and that does provide some challenges that you need to take into consideration. But it's the same as whether people can read a map and come to the venue. On the other side, it's the same principle. You've got to get them into the meeting and allow them to join the meeting. And then on that side, again, depending on how you are running the online meeting, you may need more staff, because what we find is that a lot of times you need to provide them with an agenda. People prepare a presentation that they want to present, and then the chats and the QAs. So it depends on whether you're only running chats and whether you're running Q&As, and only certain people may respond to Q&As. And so that logistical exercise on an online meeting needs to be taken into consideration. The advantage is that if an online meeting adjourns, you can then have it a week later at the same cost effectively, if I can put it that way, because the platform's already been paid for. It should have been paid for, whether it's Zoom or Teams or whatever. But other things come into play, especially if you want to maintain quorum. What we do find is people using MS Teams, because it's a corporate grade and a corporate solution, it chews a lot of data. It is far more data intensive. And if you are running team sessions into smaller, lower income bodies corporate, you need to consider that you may lose quorum because people are running out of data through the session. The team session actually chews up data, and Teams, as I'm pointing them out, it's a brilliant system, robust, high grade. They also go down. Cables might be stolen in Egypt, in the Red Sea, that will affect our performance on Teams. Banks, we do a lot of work. I do a lot of work in banks where the whole system in the banks would die on a daily basis. People don't think about this, but it's the same principle. It's technical issues, whether we have a team of 500 people attending to that. The same principle can apply, that it can eat up your data and it can fail. But on the other side, as I said, we have load shedding that can cause you to also adjourn. So there is no right or wrong answer, but we need to take into consideration that. So I think online is better to manage, better to control. That's my view, and obviously, we specialize in that area. And we can then make it more available to people. What people don't appreciate on the online side is that we can bring you into the meeting, even if you're using Teams or Zoom, we can bring you into the meeting quickly. But once you're on the meeting, you need to provide access as a security measure to the operating platform, whether they can allow access your microphone and your camera. So a lot of people don't do that. They come into the meeting and then they complain. Like they can't speak. They can't unmute themselves. Nobody wants to unmute themselves. And it's not that. It's a security thing that one needs to take into consideration. The advantage that we see with an online meetings, we can have a dry run before the meeting. So we can open up, and what we normally do on our side is we just have a side meeting, if I can put it that way, that we open up and leave it open for 2 hours, and owners join, come in and say, you know, I'm just checking my camera, checking my sound is working lekker. And the advantage that you have in that case is that you are taking away all the pressure and the frustration when they want to participate in the actual meeting. All those technical issues have already been resolved. And in that sense, you also have taken away the mood that may arise in the meeting because people are struggling on the technical side. So it's easier to have a bit of a prep session, bring the people in, and when they are actually in a meeting, and there was a comments, and I want to thank those that responded to on the questions that Hendrik posted yesterday. There is the option about elderly people, and what we do, we run quite a number of, I must use the right word, mature lifestyle estates. It's no longer retirement villages, it's mature lifestyle estates. Where once we've done the pre-booking or the pre-meeting dry run, people will pitch up to the meeting, sitting there with their phones, and they're ready to vote. So it is possible. We think that they are not that savvy. Everyone drives WhatsApp. So what we do is we provide half an hour, what we find very effective on the online meeting, half an hour before the meeting, to shoot off all the invites via WhatsApp. So we do the normal emails throughout the 2 weeks or whatever. And then half an hour before the meeting, we top the WhatsApps. And everybody then, oh, we need to join a meeting. They click on the link and they go into the meeting from their phones via WhatsApp. It's a very simple process you can follow there. The difficult one is the hybrid meetings. What kills a hybrid meeting is one factor. If people cannot hear those that are in the virtual world in the room, and the virtual world cannot hear Tannie Sunny at the back asking a question because she's not vocal in asking the question, so she might be very soft-spoken, and then they can't hear the question, and then the chair needs to relay it, so it becomes a bit of a mess in that side. And that is where hybrid meetings fail on one aspect. Well, there's two, but the primary aspect is that you need to ensure that those are in a hybrid meeting, there's good communication. That normally requires specialized equipment. It's not only just a little sound box and whatever, especially if it's a large room. You need to have roaming mics, you need to have digital sound cards, you need to have mixers, and. So in that case, there are going to be a cost associated with either a sound technician or a service provider that you can bring in to provide that. But that is key to good communication. If you don't have that, but now you need two teams. Now you need the team to manage the virtual world as well as the physical world. The sound engineer can tune, but that is where and that's an extra cost. So hybrid meetings are very, very effective, but they're costly because of the in-person support staff, the technical support staff, and then the next thing that we then need to, the next problem that we face is that you need to be presenting the same voting card to those that are online and those that are in the room. And if there are changes, if there's somebody, a nomination comes back, especially if you're taking nominations from the floor, it must be immediately be added, and everybody must have the same experience, even the same numbering. We see that quite often where the notice goes out with an A, B, C, D, and the voting cards is 1, 2, 3. Ah, man, it's just a nightmare. People can't relate, they can't read the wording because one is not A. And in that case, it's very easy on an electronic platform to say, oh, don't worry, relax, give us a second. Okay, there you go. Everybody is in the same format. So that is the things that you need to take into consideration. But hybrid meetings are by far the biggest demand that we currently face, where we get asked to run and we are very, very persistent in our approach, saying, yes, we'll support you on a hybrid meeting. Two things. We want somebody in the room. We want the sound engineer in the room, and then the virtual world needs to be controlled in the same way. So those are the extra costs that one needs to take into consideration around the two. So it's either physical, and even if you are using physical, we still say use MeetingPal, because MeetingPal, you can in the physical world walk in with your phone, everybody vote. There's no calculation, no voting papers that needs to float around and people can't. So even those that we run, and with the WhatsApps, even if we run meetings in person, people get to the venue, we just ask them, did you receive your WhatsApp? Just open up, click the meeting, thank you, you can go in. It literally takes, we do, I've done one the other night where we had 300 attendees, in-person attendees. There was no hold up. As the people walked in, we just, did you get the WhatsApp? Boom, boom, thank you, walk in. Those that did not get it, we can then assist them to scan in their code or get a code to join the meeting. But mostly it just, people just flow, and by the time they hear the guy at the back, oh, I got my WhatsApp, and they just from a walk past. So that is if you're using physical, you still use an electronic voting platform. And then it's the same as the other side with the online and the hybrid meetings. As I say, the trick is to sync that and decide.
Yeah. I always enjoy when I have to chair on a hybrid meeting and you guys are as MeetingPal are running it, because then I get that cool mic and then I feel like such a superstar when I walk around. I just feel so much cooler than when it's just purely in person or online. But I must say, like, that is definitely, I can echo what you're saying. Like, that is the challenges that I've heard from people. Take the people element of, they don't know what they're doing, or they haven't taken the time to do the dry run or do the demo or something like that. The biggest thing or issue that I find about hybrids is that lack of synchronicity between the people in the room and then the people online. But I must say, like, I've been to hybrid meetings that you guys have done where it's worked very well. So, I mean, it really is just, I think, unfortunately, to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail, right? And I think people just don't, or perhaps underestimate, just how much preparation meetings and resolutions and decisions and things like that actually take. Yeah. I think that Sarah has a question for you, Poena. And then I think I know Zelinda has something she wants to ask, and I know we've got quite a few interesting comments. So and it feels like time is just flying by. So yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, yes, my question is, when it comes to voting at an AGM, how long do you typically need to store the voting records? And then what information needs to be in that voting record?
Can I add to that, Poena, before you answer? How long do you typically hold the vote open as well to allow people to cast their votes? And then to add a further one to that, if somebody had difficulty or struggled or whatever the excuse is, are you in agreement that a resolution can be reopened? Or like us, do you believe that it's, sorry, too late, you should have listened the first time around? So how long do you keep it open, and then do you go back to resolutions?
So to answer, I'll get to the storage and the period around that. To answer your question, which is the easy one, it depends on the chair. Serious. I mean, I remember our role would be then to be in support of the chair, and we will never challenge the chair, irrespective of bad or good decisions that they make in terms of allowing people in after, allowing proxies in after the meeting has started. Things like that, and or whether they circle back and allow people to revote. The only worry that I have is if you do that and you allow people to come back and vote, you've already announced the results. In terms of the Act Director, the voting has been concluded, the chair needs to announce the results. Now the results are based on those that voted at that point. Now, then you go on and somebody challenges the budget and says, oh, but we need to go back to this and then change that, reopen the voting. Now, all of a sudden, the results have been announced. How do you change that? How do you manage with that? So that, in my mind, is the chair. If I chair, sorry, we've gone past that item. I freeze the results effectively. That's the word I use. The results have been frozen. Voting cards have been taken in. They're already in the safe. I can't open the safe. It's a Dropbox safe. I can't open it. So it's gone. So you have an option to either call for a different resolution. But again, that depends on the chair. But we can't go back. So that is my view in terms of how to do that. In terms of how long to save the voting results and what do you need to save. I had a challenging AGM on Tuesday night, and I've been inundated with calls yesterday by owners demanding to see the results, who voted what. And as a service provider, we don't disclose that. We go like, ask your POPI officer whether they are using a PIA manual or whatever recourse. I'm not going to get into that fight. We do capture all the information. We do, from a technical point of view, Sarah, we've been to court on decisions made by developers being ousted on the trustees. They take, because they've got money, they take everything to court. And then we got to come in as an expert witness to provide feedback as to who voted what. And then the next step is then the auditors, not the auditors, the legal eagles in the room will challenge us that you've tampered with the vote. So then we go back into our audit trail. We've got a system audit trail at the back, so we can say that you were on your Apple device, you pressed the yes button 4 times and then you changed your mind or whatever. So we have track of that. So we keep, from a practical point of view, how long do we keep that? Now, again, this is where we need two things to consider. The SDSMA as well as then POPI, because we are now in 2 acts that we need to govern. The one is the SDSMA, and Teresa, I see you on the call. You've had a very specific view on how long and what documents it needs to be kept. My view is simple, that because it's electronic, I can keep it, I archive it. There's a cost associated to retrieving the archive, but I can keep it, I can store the data for 6 years. And then in terms of POPI, I need to confirm and have a specific process as to how I delete and destroy the data at that point in time, because there's a whole process that you need to follow in terms of POPI as to the deletion of data that you need to follow. So that is on the one hand. The second thing is in terms of what do you need to store. In terms of, again, POPI, you may only store what is relevant and required for that specific area. So in terms of any voting, what we need to store is your unit number, your name, your email address, and or your WhatsApp number, if we have that, and then the actual vote. So that is what we store. We don't store your color of your hair and your eyes and whatever, because that is excessive information, but we don't require, it's not required in terms of POPI. But we store those items and we store them, again, as I say, for future reference, being called into court, CSOS, and we know this, when we are running a meeting where there's a palace revolution, trustees get ousted through SGM, new trustees come in, the old trustees go to CSOS, we get CSOS queries every time. So that's not and again, from an audit point of view, we can always justify and confirm that, as well as with proxy. So what we do is within our system, we upload all the proxy documents, we upload all even if we do manual votes for those real oaks that battle, we can do a manual vote, but we make a screenshot and we capture that all as part of the record. So even the recordings, everything, we keep all of that as part of the record of the meeting. Now, whether it's needed or not, but 6 years from now, if anybody challenges me, I go into my meeting, one access point, and I have all the records, I have all my notes, everything is there and accessible, and I don't need to look like a pada looking around for documents. And on Zoom, you have this, your files, GMT 2025, you will all file it as that somewhere, and then you got to go and hunt them down. So in terms of process, my recommendation is, if it's electronic, keep it as for 6 years at least. If it is paper, and I would also personally keep it for 6 years, but then I'm also considering the number of warehouses that you need to put up to store all the freaking voting slips on the manual side. So I think it's a trade-off. And I know that, as I said, some of the attendees, Marion and Teresa, has got different views in terms, or very specific views. And again, I'm not saying who's right or wrong, but they have a different view in terms of what you need to store and for what period of time. And perhaps Teresa can come in because she did a proper survey or an analysis on that. But it's important to understand that what you need to store is relevant to the question, as also to the meeting and to the purpose that it's being used for. So that is my advice around what do you need to store.
I see you've picked on Teresa a couple of times. I'm sure that all of you that are on that sectional title Living in South Africa group know who Teresa is. We really value her sound advice that she gives from an owner and a trustee perspective, which is always very interesting because there's a lot of attorneys that give you advice, and sometimes those attorneys, have never lived in sectional title, has never gone to a meeting, has never been a managing agent or work with managing agents or see the law black and white and not practically. So to hear sound advice from a non-legal person such as Teresa, such as Marion, I know the other guys are going to feel very angry with me that I'm not listing them. It's just the two of them are the loudest voices on this group that I can think about right now. It's really great to hear what they practically experience. And one of the questions that Hendrik posed on his question on the group last night or yesterday was, should we force individuals to switch on their cameras on an online meeting? And I've had the thought before. I know I hate being on an online meeting where I'm literally looking at myself. And from a professional point of view, unless my internet is failing or my hair hasn't been done, I put my camera on. And sometimes I really am just staring at myself talking, which I mean is not the worst thing, but okay, fine. I would prefer to have a couple of other faces looking at me. Number one, to know that they're actually there and haven't walked away from their computer. Number two, to know that it's actually them that's on the other side. And number three, to see whether or not they're actually getting what I'm saying. When you see people, when you look at them and they're nodding, I mean, I love when Ruth is in an audience because you can see she's agreeing with you. She's like, yeah, or like, no, or like, what are you even smoking? So I love that type of appearance. So Teresa, I mean, she said it on a public forum. She said, if you're going to force me to put my camera on, like, I'm not going to go to that meeting type of thing. Which also leads me to the comment that was made about participation at meeting. So we know in terms of the Act, we have to be able to participate. And there's no definition as to what participation is. Do we participate before? Do we participate on a Q&A? Do we participate on a chat? Do we participate by being able to unmute ourselves? I find that it's easier to control people physically in a room because they don't seem to want to embarrass themselves face to face as much as they're happy to embarrass themselves behind their camera being off. And I find it challenging. And sometimes all I can do is literally mute them or remove them from a room if they are creating disorder in a meeting. So it's not always, great to allow people to unmute themselves and for them to participate. But, that's how things would be at a physical meeting. The keeping people muted the whole time is an interesting concept and only allowing them to chat. I do believe that it is participation and I believe that it is legal, but I don't like it because very often you're not able to put your point across in writing as you would be able to put your point across verbally. And what I've seen from the hundreds of annual general meetings I've gone to over the years, and even the ones I've attended as an owner, is I want this annual general meeting as my one opportunity to be heard. If I'm not happy with something, I want the other side to hear the frustration in my voice, to see the what the hell expression on my face. And you're taking that away from me, if you're only allowing me to chat. I've also been to a meeting that's run as a webinar where you cannot unmute yourself, you cannot speak verbally, and you can't chat in the chat. I mean, that's a hardcore no-no in my books. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear, and I've actually asked Carl to create a couple of polls for us if anybody has had those experiences and what their preference is in attendance to meetings as well. But again, there's nothing wrong with going to a meeting and saying, you know what, the size of the meeting is hectic. Some of the owners are just crazy, or we're expecting it to be hectically acrimonious. We're going to mute everyone, but we're going to allow you to put your points across in writing. Someone else pointed out, and this will be the last thing I say for now, someone pointed out to maybe have a couple of informal meetings before to get that, to get that discussion points and things out, to actually leave the annual general meeting for the purpose of voting. The only risk with that is that everyone's questions are answered in the informal meetings and then no one rocks up to the annual general meeting. So that's a bit of a danger. I suppose you can, feel quite passionate about meetings. And one last thing, read your pack before the
Oh.
meeting. It is not posted or emailed to you to cut down a tree or to fill up your inbox. You, as an owner and as a trustee, because I've worked with many trustees that have not read the annual general meeting pack before you go. And this is going to sound very negative, and I'm sure I'm going to get a couple of snot claps after the meeting. You do not deserve to go to the annual general meeting if you have not read the pack. No one expects you to understand it. No one expects you to be an accountant or an auditor. No one expects you to have an opinion on anything. But if you're going to go to a meeting and you're going to participate, you're going to shout and scream, you're going to want to have your voice heard, read the pack. That's what the notice period is there for. Okay? Read your pack. If I go to one more meeting this year, because I think I'm just hot full of 2025, where someone asks a question that has been answered in the pack, I'm going to lose my bananas. So be warned for anyone that comes to a meeting where I'm sharing it. Read your pack.
And I just want so on the sectional title schemes, it's all well what you said. HRAs do, if you are running HRAs, remember there's a regulation 1 of 2024 as per sub C, that you need to allow everybody to speak. You must, and you must even allow them to speak and or interact with each other without your interference. So your chat needs to allow them to chat to each other without you being intermediary is the word that they use. So that is part of it. And your panel members, all your directors must always be visible, irrespective of what you share or who's talking. So the directors must always be visible. So you need to ensure that your platform that you select allows for all of that to be taken care of, where they all have the opportunity to participate. And the directors must always be visible. And the agenda must be visible in the same vote. So they've got 5 points, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but that is typically things that, back to what Zelena was saying, is just take into consideration BCs, got their own rules, but the moment you go into HRAs, be very careful around that as well.
100%. And I mean, even taking it a step further, there's of course here in the Western Cape, we then have the common law as well, which is everyone kind of not everyone do what you want, please don't take that, don't run with that. But basically, if you can kind of put whatever you want in your constitution as long as it's legal. And if everyone votes on it and is in favor, it is what it is, kind of thing. Whereas of course in GP, KZN, I know there are some in the Western Cape, but very few non-profit company HOAs, they of course have that additional layer of compliance with Companies Act, CIPC requirements, all of those things. Yeah, it's super interesting.
Unfortunately, we weren't able to figure out the poll, so if anybody can help us from a technological point of view for next time, that'll be great. I'd like to ask you just to put a thumbs up or a thumbs down or pop something in the chat if you, number one, have used MeetingPal. I'd love to know how many people online have, made that effort to get, like a technological provider. And then I'd be very interested to see in the chat how many people, thanks Michelle for your offer to help with the poll, how many people still go to meetings where voting is done by a show of hands? Or my favorite, are there any objections? We'll note that there are no objections. I'd like to see how that will pan out at CSOS and in court. So those will be two interesting questions from my side. I think Poena and Nicole, if there isn't anything further, I'd love to open up the floor for a couple of questions.
100%. I was just thinking to myself, where did the hour go?
I know. So it shows you we need to have another one. I'm not too sure. Is it AGM season at the moment? Ruth, yeah, AGM season at the moment, or is it always AGM season? I think it's always AGM season.
Always AGM season, but it is quite bad at the moment, yeah.
Yeah. I remember working with Ruth when all of her AGMs were in December. So when the rest of us were like, la, 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 catching up with our filing, she was like, AGM, AGM, AGM. Are there any live questions that anybody would like to ask? You're more than welcome to raise your hand, unmute yourself, any comments that you'd like to make, and then we can have a look at the chat for a couple of minutes.
Can
I have one question.
Sorry, Ruth.
Morning.
Ooh.
Morning.
You're supposed to be able to identify yourself. The chairman is supposed to be able to know who's in the meeting. How does he know that if you don't put your camera on? I have a huge issue with cameras not being on.
I'm sure Poena has a technological answer for that, but I've gone to meetings online and physically when people have presented their ID, but just a reminder that you cannot stop someone from coming to a meeting if they don't present their ID. So
No,
it's kind of
that. But I mean, you have a meeting and the app provides that you can do it like we do it on Zoom, no problem. But the chairman has to be able to identify you. How do you identify somebody online when you can't see them? So
Well, you
yeah,
might not necessarily know what they look like in any event. You might meet those owners for the first time at a meeting, or they might be the person that is representing a CC or a company or something like that anyway. So I know that Poena, you'll change like iPhone 7 or whatever to the owner's name and all those fun things. I would also like to think if someone is going to attend a boring annual general meeting and they're not the owner, my goodness, I'm sure there's better things to do with life. But there's probably just a sense of honesty and integrity that you're dealing with a relevant person.
yeah,
But
until it comes to the fight. You know, it's my lawyer that actually sat there because they were looking to trip us up. You know what I mean? And
I know
I
we've
just have
totally done that. Yeah.
to say, works
Ruth,
and MeetingPal works, thank heavens, and Puna's on speed dial, thank the Pope. But yeah, I just get a bit irritated when people don't turn on their cameras, or at least turn it on when they're changing their name from iPad 26,000 to their name, just so we know,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, it is you, or you're there with your granny to help the techniques. You know,
Yeah.
that's what.
Poena?
I was just wanted to say that, Ruth, there is a feature that we use for HOAs where you can upload an encrypted, we encrypt the IDs, and then you can have a copy of the ID so that you can at least map it to the person. And HOAs, only registered people with an ID can attend the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, look, I don't think we need to go that far, but it's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
yeah,
but it's difficult, but we can.
no, it's just challenging.
I
This is
see
my
we've
little
got a hand. We've got a hand from Lindy. You can unmute yourself.
Morning, Zelinda.
Hello.
Good man. It's Pravesh. I'm just using Lindy's computer as one base.
And how would
It's
we know
Pravesh.
that? There you go. You're just proving a point. We need to be able to identify people.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, it's Pravesh from Unlimited Townhouses. I just have a few problem areas. I'm hoping you guys are going to give me some assistance. We in KZN and the client base in KZN is not the easiest kettle of fish to deal with. So I have daily issues at AGMs where obviously we keep on preaching the much loved legislation, but a lot of these clients are not adhering to their 10-year plan, their minimum reserve fund, 12 years down the line. And it's just ongoing and ongoing. And what I'm feeling right now is obviously CSOS is coming in with a huge compliance check across the buildings right now. It from their perspective, obviously sitting in their regional branches, it looks very bad on my end from a point that I'm possibly not giving them the correct advice or I'm not giving them the proper legislation. But the challenges on the field out here, the guys are just not taking heed of any legislation whatsoever. And I've been preaching this legislation over the past 10 years. There's a lot of body corporates up till today don't have their minimum reserve funds in place. They're not approving their budgets timelessly. Their 10-year plans are not in place. It's always an affordability issue. But at the same breath, I'm doing that and I'm not getting any joy from them. And then CSOS on the other end is coming in quite hard on us. They looking at us as if we are not a very effective managing agent in KZN, which is not the case right now. I think the feeling on the field and the feeling with the sitting in an office is two different perspective of answering a question and dealing with somebody in person. So I'm having that huge challenge, but it's a never-ending challenge. But what worries me is obviously with the CSOS here now, I'm just concerned because they have a very different outlook when they do their checks and balances, etc. They look at a total non-compliance, but nobody takes the time and effort to sit down with us as portfolio managers and ask us what is our challenges, how can we assist you all, or even if CSOs could come to these meetings and see what we feel, then they can probably think this matter a bit more deeper, because their expectation is obviously your CS2 submissions. A lot of times I have issues where things don't go according to plan at AGM. So that's my all-round challenge. But I'm looking if we can shape this industry. But we're looking for support from the role players, CSOs, and stuff like that.
Yeah, trust me, the role players in the industry are working very hard. Again, I'll pick on Teresa. I mean, Teresa single-handedly involved the Shadow Minister of Human Settlements back then, the DA Shadow Minister of Human Settlements, to actually make some traction. And the only reason that we didn't get that final push was because the Chief Ombudsman changed. And we've had a couple of good chief ombuds, we've had a couple of bad chief ombuds, but it really isn't up to CSOS to make the change. It's up to the industry to force the CSOS to make the change. I've seen the CSOS in Darbers being advertised, and the number of negative comments that are there. We've been fortunate to receive an invitation to speak on a panel, and I'm almost afraid that people are going to throw eggs at me because now I seem to be supporting the CSOS by attending an Indaba where they're wasting our levy funds, where they should rather be appointing adjudicators and all of those fun things. I'd rather go to an Indaba than a cycling race where they're spending the money, but that's also quite a hot topic. We, as South Africans, make jokes about these type of things, and I think it's our way to cope with the environment that we're in. But it is up to us as owners, trustees, managing agents to continue applying that pressure. I don't think it's a KZN thing at all. I think it's a South African thing. We're all experiencing difficulty with CSOS, and yes, they have improved. Yes, the timelines have shortened, but the only reason that they've improved is because we've become wiser. We've become more knowledgeable about what they can do, what they can't do, what we should be looking at, how to make applications and all of those fun things. And we joke about AI and Dr. Google and all those fun things. Those free resources have helped us become more educated on it. So people are a lot more they're a lot quicker to say, no, CSOS, we're not doing the right thing. Yes, it's a slow process, but it certainly is happening. When it comes to KZN specifically, I mean, I think Mervyn is a good provincial ombud. He's very open to engaging, and the CSOS do attend meetings. I don't think they do so religiously, and they probably do so with a couple of pushes and pulls, but maybe that is a good idea to get them involved. But it does come down to the owners and the trustees. So good on you for educating. I do think that it's going to get better, or it's going to get terribly worse and we no longer have the CSOS, one of the two. But I am hoping for the better rather than not. Willem, you had your hand raised, and then Sandy.
Thank you, Zelinda. This can open a whole new hornet's nest, but I don't want to. Specific question in this rather than dealing with the topic itself, and that's recording of meetings. Now, a meeting has been recorded, and it's assumed that everything was above board in the recording and so forth, etc. Now, minutes are drafted and minutes are approved. We have a number of times had minutes that weren't really drafted that well in terms of the recording, and owners then, subsequent to the minutes being approved, then say, no, but the recording says something different. And to me now there's a problem. My personal stupid view probably is that once the minutes have been approved, the recording means diddly. But until it's approved, yes, you can go back and say, but hang on, I don't agree with that. Just a view.
Yeah, it's a good view. When the recording of meetings, in my opinion, only really started with online meetings. I don't really remember a lot of physical meetings where people took recordings. And when I was practicing as a managing agent, and meetings were being recorded by those like dictaphone thingies, before the iPhones became so smart and things like that, it was very much clear to everybody, hey, we're recording for minute purposes. And I remember from those dictaphones, and Ruth, you'll remember as well, they can't hold a lot of memory either. So you're deleting. And you're not saving it anywhere either. So I do think that a recording of a meeting, unless it's specifically for the purposes of recording the meeting for evidence or for a dispute later on, and that intention has been notified to all the owners, The recording is an administrative thing, and it doesn't form part of the records of the body corporates. And the managing agent, who normally is the owner of the recording, it's their recording device, it's their Zoom platform, whatever it might be, is entitled to destroy it after doing the minutes, or entitled to put it into the cloud and not give it to anybody. I imagine that only a court can say you must hand over the recording, and not even the CSOS has that ability to do so. I do like to record meetings, and I feel that people generally behave if a meeting is recorded, unless they forget and then I remind them. But I'm 100% in agreement that it is an administrative thing. How many PMs go and listen to that 2, 3, 4 hour meeting again to do the minutes? I don't know. We used to have a fast forwarding function, hey, make the people talk like squirrels to get it done quick. So I hope that answers your question. Sandy, you've got your hand raised. Cool.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So, you mentioned something about the CSOS, and obviously that has to be handled separately. Now, we're also having situations where obviously council's gone and increased substantially with the relevant costs and all of that. And obviously, bodies corporate would want to fight back on that. So, in your opinion, apologies if this cannot take time. Maybe we can have another session on this if we're going to run over too late. But the challenge that we're fighting is that the trustees are made to look like the bad people, and oftentimes managing agents as well, with all these increases that are coming in. And we had a public meeting this past weekend where I reiterated to them and said, look, it's unfair what you guys have done, because we are looking like the bad guys in the scene and nothing is coming towards you. Now, I'm laying it on your shoulders to actually say, what is council going to do about this? Because nothing was communicated. There was no time for managing agents and trustees to go and do AGMs within 2 weeks for something like 40 odd complexes, and then get this over the line and just make sure everybody is aware. So how do we handle such things if it would affect the body corporate budget? And then the owners pushing back and saying, we haven't voted, we haven't had our say, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I went to a meeting yesterday evening, Sandy, where a very minimal levy increase was raised and approved. And now there's a whole bunch of correspondence going around in all these wonderful WhatsApp groups to say that it's corruption that there's been a levy increase, but security has gone up, water has gone up, electricity has gone up, everything has gone up. So it's interesting what people's perceptions are about levy increases. About a webinar specifically on the topic, have a look at the Women in Sectional Title webinar that's coming up on Thursday the 23rd at 11 o'clock. They're going to be talking about Trustee Truth, the realities behind the role. That just popped up on my Facebook feed. Facebook is always listening, hey? So that came up. The issue about the municipal charges and any charges really, I think owners need to remember that the trustees are, number one, volunteers. There are representatives of the members, and in most cases, they are owners themselves. So they're not the ones that are pushing the levies up. They're the ones that are paying along with the rest of the owners as well. They've got that liability and all those fun things too. So no, it's most certainly not the trustees' fault. I do, and I think about it more and more, I really like the idea of having an informal budget meeting before the annual general meeting, where owners can come and really debate and ask their questions. That being said, I had one in an HA a number of years ago. Ruth might will remember, huge HA, and only 2 people rocked up. So you are going to have those individuals, unfortunately, but maybe with online it'll be easier. It's a very, very good idea to engage with owners informally before they actually have to make the decisions. Somebody asked to repeat the name of the group. It is Women in Sectional Title, or WIST. That was started by Marina Constas at BBM Attorneys. So they're on Facebook and LinkedIn and social media and all those fun things. Go and take a look at that. Ladies and gents, we've hit 10 past 11, and I know we're all 11 past 11. We're all very busy. Thank you so much for attending the session. I think this is the second last webinar that we'll be having for 2025. November, I believe, is our last one, because I'd like you poor managing agents that have to work until 4 o'clock on the 24th. We go on holiday early. So December is but a whisper and a lick and a promise before we go on holiday. Thank you so much for all of you that attended. I think that we had a record attendance today. So it shows you that, Poena, your business is in safe hands. I hope that you get a couple of new clients. The one thing I can truly say about Poena is that he's not just a techie. He chairs meetings, he knows the law, he maintains order. I went to a meeting the other day where, you know, it doesn't matter what I say. Poena came online and everyone was like, well, okay, if he says it, so be it. I didn't know if I needed to be impressed or offended. Poena, thank you so much for your time. I know that you're hectically busy, and thank you to every single one of you that attended. Thank you to the team, and have a good weekend coming up and a good week further. And we'll catch you next time. Keep well, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.